You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
it's our last Fab Fact in costume.
We're facing death from on high in the Randomiser.
and how do you bring Space Precinct to HD? It's Scott Squared from ITV Content Services.
And that's all coming up in pod 260.
And I've no idea what I just said of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Scott Squared. Do you want an explainer of that?
Yeah, what's Scott Squared?
Okay, well, when we get there, the interview this week is with two very nice gents from ITV Content Service in Leeds. They're the ones who did the HD upscale restoration of Space Precinct.
Yes.
And those people are Scott Evans and Scott Tempest-Mitchell.
Oh, that's a very Anderson name.
It is, isn't it? To have two of three names be, and someone's going to now write in and say, actually, there's a Mitchell character somewhere. But no. So yes, that's why it's Scott Squared. Scott and Scott later on.
Gotcha. Rightio.
There you go. And I'm speaking to them, so you can listen to me. And anyone who doesn't know who I am.
Oh yes,
so
like
far
me,
as possible. Yes.
Who are you?
Jamie Anderson, son of the late great Gerry Anderson, and co-host of the Gerry Anderson podcast with you,
Richard James. I mean,
do you want to,
pick myself up a bit?
Some detail?
Well, I've got a bit of a Gerry Anderson connection. I was in Space Precinct,
No, really?
Playing the much-loved Officer Oren.
Well, much-loved and now high-definition Officer Oren.
Wow, quite right. Isn't that amazing? And
you
since
look
then,
great in
I
HD.
don't know what else. I did a Terrahawks episode, First Action Bureau, Planet of Bones. That was fun.
Yes.
Gosh. You're
inextricably linked.
5 Star 5, Space Precinct novels. I mean, it's,
Intergalactic Rescue 4.
Oh, I mean, I'm in it up to my neck, aren't I?
You really are, actually. When you start listing it out, it's amazing how much you do.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We have one other member of the team who is also inextricably linked with the worlds of Anderson, and his name is
won't let him go.
Christopher Randomiser Dale. That he's now changed his name by deed poll. I don't know if I've mentioned that in the previous pod, but he turns up at the end of every episode to do the randomizer, where he randomly selects a random episode of a Gerry Anderson show and watches it and says things for your delight, entertainment, and education.
He does every week.
Yeah. Yes. So that's kind of the top and tail of the show, us talking and the randomizer at the end. And we've already mentioned the interview in between.
Yes.
Richard, do you want to give us a little intro of the other stuff, a little rundown, perhaps?
Oh, is that it? Not in the style of, or
no? I'll tell you what.
Just
you
a
can
rundown.
do it in the style of,
which I kept quiet now.
in the style of a corporate health and safety presenter who's welcomed the entire upper management team to a health and safety briefing, which is going to last throughout the day. Good luck.
Welcome, delegates, to this health and safety briefing. Firstly, I would like to draw your attention to the trip hazards in the room. The first being Fab Facts. Quite a large one to get over that, so do tread carefully. Over at the corner there, you'll see our exits there to the right and the left, and they head straight to the Gerry Anderson news. Through those exits, you'll find some news from the Gerry Anderson universe. The interview we've already mentioned, which is a minor detour, and of course the randomizer. But the main thing that you'll be aware of is the air condition. Now, do be very careful. The air is quite toxic, and that is as a result of our Podsterons, who have been blowing hot air all over us as they send in their emails, mention us on Twitter, and post on our Facebook group. Any questions?
Yes, can I ask the name of this health and safety lecturer, please?
Nigel.
Nigel, of course he's Nigel. Brilliant. Well, I thought, given a very limp brief, you did quite a good job there.
I should say so. Yeah, a limp brief. It's the limpest brief I've ever had.
Well, there we go. And that, Podsterons, is why we are truly honoured to be in the presence of Olivier-nominated, Offie-nominated
wow.
Richard James.
Yes.
Gosh. It's true, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah, well, it is true. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true.
And if you'd like to see said Olivier and Offie nominated Richard James in the flesh, then you'll want to go to BritSciFi on the 17th and 18th of June in Leicester.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a live podcast and a live Fab live stream,
Yes.
which should be fun. I don't know how that's going to go, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, we're there all weekend, aren't we?
We
Incredible.
are all weekend. Anyway, one of the many things that we will be doing live
Oh, yeah.
that we also do on the recorded version of the podcast
Are we? Okay.
is
Yeah.
our weekly visit to the world of Fab Facts.
Look forward to it.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, indeed. As well, you all know this is Richard's favourite part of every podcast, where I have a book of Fab Facts, I flick through it, he shouts Fab, which stops me flicking, and then we hope to happen. We hope to happen.
Hello.
We
A
hope.
little homage to Stanley Unwin there.
Yeah, well, by mistake. Oh dear. We hope to happen upon a Fab
yes.
Fact upon one of those pages where I've stopped flicking with my middling to clammy thumb today.
Yeah. Deep joy.
Richard, are you ready with your clamour of Fab?
Born ready.
Here comes the flicking.
Fab!
That was very, 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 very loud in my ear.
Sorry. I do beg your pardon. And quick off the mark as well, I think.
Yeah, well, not that quick. We're still kind of in
where are
the
we?
kind of middle region.
Okay.
You might actually recall
Yeah.
that many years ago we covered a Fab Fact about the episode of This Is Your Life.
You're asking me to remember a Fab Fact from many years ago.
Well,
are
let me
you?
remind you, because you might suddenly go, ah, yes. It was This Is Your Life that featured Roy Dotrice.
Right.
Yeah? And how he was
Go on.
surprised by Eamon Andrews, the host of This Is Your Life, on the set of Moonbase Alpha's main mission.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
And
Yep,
I'm sure
vague
you'll
memories.
recall that was when they were filming the Space 1999 episode Earthbound. No?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know. It does ring a bell.
Good,
Yes.
there you go. I thought it might do. Now, this connected Fab Fact shows us that Roy was far from being the only Anderson actor to be featured on the show. As among those given the This Is Your Life accolade included such Anderson series regulars as
Yeah.
Rupert Davies,
Oh, yeah.
Windsor Davis,
Oh, yeah.
Nicholas Parsons, and Barbara Kelly, plus guest actors such as John Thor, Stephanie Beacham, Patrick Mower, Robin Bailey, and many more.
Oh, great.
However, did you know that on one edition of This Is Your Life, which focused around a regular from an Anderson show, not only was that show discussed, but one of their former co-stars actually turned up in costume.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, in the episode broadcast on Wednesday, December the 19th, 1973, the man in the spotlight was none other than UFO's George Sewell.
Oh, right.
George was ambushed during filming of the Euston Films crime drama Special Branch, in which he starred alongside UFO protectors and Space 1999 guest star Patrick Mower. Now, not only did Patrick then go along with George to Euston Road Studios for the recording, but among the many other friends, family and colleagues who came in to celebrate George's life and career were his UFO co-stars, Dolores Mantes, and,
Yes.
in full costume, including iconic purple wig, Gabrielle Drake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, Gabrielle's final scenes in UFO for the episode Kill Straker had been recorded in November 1969, but this edition of This Is Your Life was recorded in October 1973. So almost certainly would have been the final time that Gabrielle ever wore her old costume, and possibly the final time that the Moonbase operative uniform ever appeared on screen in new footage.
Wow.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Hang on. Is it canon? That's the question.
I'm not sure it's quite canon, but it's
Let's write a story to make it canon.
okay, fine. Yes, where he had to the actor had to hang on. Let me just get this right now. Alec Freeman had to pose as an actor
Yeah.
called George Sewell,
There you go.
and Gabrielle Drake had to pose.
Yes.
No, Gay Ellis had to
No.
pose as an
That's
actor
it.
called Gabrielle Drake to go on This Is Your Life. Right, that's a very UFO plot. Anyway,
Yep.
fast forwarding to early 1987, it was now Gabrielle Drake's turn to receive the big red book. And I know what you're thinking. Who turned up to talk about UFO?
Was it?
You guessed it.
No.
In a purple wig. No, not in a purple wig. But it was George Sewell.
Get away.
And sadly, he didn't even bother to wear his Alec Freeman costume, would you believe? But he did briefly discuss the Moonbase Girl costumes and mentioned one of his favourite pieces of fan mail the show ever received. It came from a Japanese fan who was curious about why female Moonbase operatives wore purple wigs and asked simply, "It's very beautiful, but why?" Good question.
Yeah, I suppose.
Thankfully, both episodes survive as off-air recordings and hopefully still exist somewhere in the BBC archives, but unfortunately we don't have copies of either. So if anyone has copies of either George Sewell or Gabrielle Drake's This Is Your Life episodes that they'd be willing to share, please drop us a line because we'd love to have a look.
Great. Wow, that's amazing.
It is nice, isn't it? A bit of a sort of UFO This Is Your Life crossover
It'd
episode. Double
be a bit
crossover.
like me turning up in my Precinct 88 shirt for Lou Hirsch's This Is Your Life, wouldn't it?
Oh, if only there could be
He'd
a
love
Lou
that.
Hirsch This Is Your Life, and
He'd
then
love it.
your This Is Your Life later on, where Lou wouldn't bother to come dressed as that.
He really wouldn't. He wouldn't bother to
no.
turn up anyway,
Yeah.
let alone dressed as that.
Isn't that interesting that in this arrangement you're the Gabrielle Drake and he's the George Sewell?
Well, I've always thought so.
Yes, I
mean-
suppose if anyone had to be either of those, that would be the arrangement.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm glad that we've covered that. Podsterons, if you do have recordings of those episodes, we would love to see them. Drop us a line, podcast@gerryanderson.com. And if we do manage to get them, then we'll try and do some little clips, because that would be a nice thing to do, I think. Wouldn't
That'd
it?
be lovely, yeah. I'd like to see that.
There you go.
Very much so.
Well, I think that brings us very, very neatly, and with a lovely request to our Podsterons, to the end of this week's
String
Wig
Best Fact!
Oh.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Wig
We both went
fact,
for
string
some
best.
sort of uniform thing.
Yeah, but at least mine was connected to the Fab Fact, whereas yours was slightly more,
Well, obtuse,
yes.
vague, ambiguous.
Yes.
Well,
All those
that's
your middle
name,
names.
isn't it? Yes, exactly. Nice. Very nice. Now, would you like to hear what our Podsterons have been up to?
Would I?
Cool. You, dear listener, whether you like it or not, are a Podsteron. You can get in touch with us by emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.com. You can comment on our Facebook group as well, and even tweet us and hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, and I'll see your messages there. Let's first of all, though, take a look in our postbag this week. Here's one from Ambassador Paul Hyde from the Isle of Wight, who says, "Hi, Jamie and Richard. Ambassador Paul Hyde from the Isle of Wight here." Oh, I just gave away a bit of a spoiler. "Sadly, I can't make it to Leicester," says Paul. "Because so many people have requested time off for a certain pop festival. Damn and Double Drapped. Well, I wonder what that is. The more I hear, it makes me more sad, as I won't be there, as I know who is going to appear on both days, and I'm totally gutted. That'll be us, I think. If I could get there, I would, but I can't. I'll miss seeing my fellow podders, Willow, Doug, Simpson, Clips24, Rob, Jenny, there are no commas in this, and not forgetting Ben and Steve with 3 E's, going to hate it not being there, and that's from Paul Hyde."
Oh, sorry,
Shame.
Paul. Sorry you can't make it. But, you'll be there in spirit, and you'll be able to listen in to all the nonsense that we get up to, I suspect.
Yes, exactly. So
That's good, isn't it?
You won't miss out. Hello, Rich and Jamie, says Simpsons Clips 24. After a brief intermission in topics in my last email, I'm now going to go back to talking about, guess what?
Lavender Castle.
Yes. So, I was doing some digging around on the internet, as I like to call it, or rather Tinternet, when I came across something. Apparently, in the autumn of 2000, Lavender Castle was being heavily promoted at a toy fair being held in the Business Design Centre in London. Unfortunately, I have yet to find any conclusive evidence of what Lavender Castle toys were being promoted, which is strange, especially as Rodney Matthews told me when I met him that he designed the characters to translate well to toys. Now, that's where you two come in, says Simpsons Clips. Were you at that event back then? And what Lavender Castle toys can you remember being promoted? SIG.
Well, I can very quickly answer that question.
Yeah, you weren't there.
No and none.
Yeah, right, there you go.
However, I suspect if it was at a toy fair, it wouldn't have been toys necessarily being promoted, possibly prototypes, but more likely to be the IP itself, saying, "Hello, potential licensees and manufacturers, here are our designs and our show that's on CITV currently. Would you like to license it?"
Yeah.
And I know that Rodney, designed these beautiful fantasy characters, which he thought would kind of translate beautifully to toys, and they would do. However, they were so kind of intricate and unusual, they actually kind of, I think, presented a problem for manufacture. Because, they don't fit with any kind of standard character tooling, they weren't all the kind of same shape and size. So each one would have required its own tooling, from top to bottom. And you look at a character like Isambard, who's got this incredibly long snout poking out the front. Really hard to make a toy stand up if you've got a plastic toy.
Yes, sure.
And even like a sort of a plushy thing, you're asking for trouble with a long snout and a tail like that. So I think it almost slightly got in its own way in terms of toy lines, which is a great shame because I'd love a Paradox toy, flying thatched cottage spaceship toy, amazing, and like Dr. Agon's kind of mammoth tank thing as well, and it would have been really lovely. So it's a great shame that they never came to be.
Yeah, indeed. And finally, Paul Davis says, hello, esteemed gatekeepers of the GA podcast.
Cake keepers? Cake eaters?
He's got us down, Pat. I very much enjoyed the 3-hour live streamathon presented by David Munday and Jack Knoll.
They did a hell of a job.
Covering the various merits of all the Anderson title sequences a few days ago. I guess we can still see that on the official Gerry Anderson YouTube channel.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, great. Have a listen. And a look and a watch. However, he says that there was one little title theme that got me thinking and led me to get in touch, that being Barry Gray's phenomenal Stingray title music. On Spotify and other streaming platforms, the default version of said theme has a short, vocalised middle section with a completely different melody and tempo crooned by Gary Miller with the following lyrics. And Paul offers bonus points to me if I sing it.
Come on.
No, but I'm not going to because I don't know. I haven't found it. I haven't listened to it. I don't know how it goes.
It dives under the sea into the world below, where beauty and mystery will always be found. Is that those lyrics?
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lovely middle bit. It dives under.
Nice.
Yeah.
It flies under the sea into the world below, where beauty and mystery can always be found. It dives fearless and free, chasing the strangest foe, but against adversity, it sails homeward bound.
Yeah. It's really cool. I weirdly was singing that to myself the other day.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Well, you get the bonus points there, Jamie.
Thank you.
Before then returning to the frantic drums and conclusion to the theme that we're all familiar with, it was even this full arrangement of the theme that was played by the band of the Grenadier Guards outside Buckingham Palace recently.
We saw the video. Someone put it on the old YouTube, I think.
Oh, lovely. Now, my question for Jamie is...
Oh, hello.
Do you know the history of this version of the theme, why the vocal section wasn't included in the show, and why it's become the go-to version for publishers and soundtracks of full scores, etc.?
Well, I'm full of useful answers today because in this particular case, the answers are no, no, and no. I actually have no idea why.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was just a longer version for a title sequence which wasn't used, or if it was done for an album release and it just needed to be a bit longer to extend the track out. So, and I'm not sure. I would be very happy to hear from anyone who does know the answer to that, but it is a very cool little refrain.
Yeah, it is. Finally, says Paul, Jamie recently asked the Podsterons what sort of content we'd like to see on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel.
I did.
Well, for me, it has to be more excellent making-of type documentary content and a resounding yes, please, to footage of the Gerry Anderson lecture tour from the 1990s. All the best from Paul Davis. Possible?
We're working on it.
Oh, pregnant pause there.
Yes.
Good. Okay, great. All for now, but do keep your emails coming in to podcast@gerryanderson.com. I try and read them out every week. I do. I try my best.
You do a fantastic job.
No, thanks. That's what I'm here for.
A really fantastic job. You don't get applauded enough for your tweet and email reading.
What do you want?
Nothing. Just to say that we're going to move into doing some Gerry Anderson news, if that's all right by you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go on then. Yeah.
Good. Okay, well then here's some Gerry Anderson news. It is, as every week, the Gerry Anderson news. Yes. Well, thank you for racing in there. Now, we must first tackle some rather sad news, which I'm sure lots of you will be aware of from various rumblings last week. At the time of recording, we don't have all the details, so I'm afraid I'm going to be a little bit vague. But it appears that Network Distributing, our lovely friends there who've done so much work for the Worlds of Anderson archive and beyond, have ceased trading and are no longer operating. This is extremely sad news because I'm sure many of you Podsterons, if you look over at your undershelf now, you will see multiple network titles. You will have been exposed to the high-definition, fully restored worlds of Anderson because of network, and I'm sure you've enjoyed other titles too. They did an enormous amount for British Archive Television, and it's all the more sad because obviously, sadly, Network's MD, our dear friend Tim Beddoes, passed away late last year, and so then to see Network come to a halt so soon after is extremely sad. So now we don't know what's going to happen, particularly not at the time of recording. There may be some more information out this coming week, but as far as we are aware, if you have ordered something directly from Network before the 28th of May, that it was, and if it was a released item and is in stock, you will still get it. That's what we're told. I can't confirm that currently. Right. If you order something on pre-order, I don't think that is going to be delivered, I'm afraid to say, because they are not operating as of this moment. We expect there will be some drop in supply of the availability of Anderson titles in particular, but we will be working with whoever the right parties are, we don't know yet, to try and ensure some continuity of supply. That's all I can really say at this point, but really thoughts with everybody at Network, because, you know, aside from obviously our own personal frustrations and disappointments with seeing that output fall away, there's a lot of people there who have lost jobs, many of whom really, really loved their roles there. So it's a really sad day for them and archive telly in general. So yes, sad stuff. So, but thank you to everyone at Network for all your amazing efforts over the years. And I'm sure, you know, thanks to on-shelf stuff and other bits and pieces around the world, the sort of the legacy will live on through those releases, albeit slightly tainted with sadness now. So,
indeed. Yeah,
there we are. Very, very sad. Right, but let's move on because there's definitely some positive stuff going on in the world of Anderson.
Oh, good.
And so we mustn't just be bogged down with the sad stuff. I've already mentioned BritSciFi. 17th
Hooray!
and 18th of June at Leicester International Space Centre, podcast on Saturday with a very special exclusive thing.
Hey?
That's all we can say. You know what it is. Don't pretend.
I'm just playing along.
Yeah, well, you know, we have to make it look professional, like we know what we're doing. So, shall we try it again?
A bit late for that.
With a podcast on the Saturday with a very special exclusive thing. Yes, that thing. Brilliantly done. And Sunday live stream as well. We'll be there with a few chums, well-known folks from Anderson Entertainment. We'd love to see you there. Do come and say hello.
Yes, please do.
And if you can't make it, you'll hear the podcast afterwards.
And watch Fab live on the Sunday, I guess. It'll be live, will it? Like live.
Well, we think it'll be live. It slightly depends on the internet connectivity. But yes, there we go. Now, the 18th is Father's Day, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is the Sunday. Yes, that's right.
So we thought we'd do something a bit fun and special for Father's Day. So there's a very interesting Thunderbird 2 related but rather unusual product.
Oh, just for fathers?
Well, no, not necessarily, but
okay. That will be
been created with fathers in mind.
Right.
Shall we say? Anyway, all will be revealed on the 7th of June.
Is it around to it?
I beg your pardon?
Is it around to it? Well, when my mum used to tell my dad to do things and ask him when he was going to do them, like put the shelves up and
getting
fix
around
the door,
to it.
He'd say, well, I'll do it when I get around to it.
Yeah, okay.
Typical
Brilliant.
dad joke.
Yeah, I'd never heard that one before, and hopefully I'll never hear it again.
No, okay.
But nice one. No, it's much better than around to it. Right. So keep an eye out from the 7th. Now, the day before, the 6th of June, is hopefully the go-live date for our new warehouse. We are working with a new fulfillment partner who stores and sends out our stuff. I'm sure they're going to do a fantastic job. Extremely efficient, lovely people there. And it's enabled us to do some lower shipping prices, which I'm sure you'll be very, very pleased to know about, Podsterons, because shipping prices, particularly since the pandemic, have been a real bane of our existence, and yours too, I'm sure. But with our lowest offering coming down to $3.99 on shipping and then some much lower prices across the board, I'm very, very pleased about that. International options to follow within a week to 10 days after that, so stand by further action there. Finally, for now, 10th of the month, well, it's a day to celebrate Terrahawks as we count down to the show's 40th anniversary in October this year. So the 10th of every month we're doing a celebratory thing, and there's a lovely celebratory Terrahawks video coming out on the 10th with a tale of perseverance, shall we say.
Oh, yes.
Which I think you'll rather look forward to. Anyway, there we are. Further updates on network-related items as we have it in the coming weeks. But for now, that's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news.
It was, you're right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when we do the podcast live in Leicester and I can get the audience to sing that bit.
Yes, it's always a highlight when the Podsterons join in full voice with these things.
Yeah, now talking about the Podsterons joining in, let's wander over to our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, where lots of people have been posting pictures of their latest merch, their reviews of various Gerry Anderson series, and their general thoughts and comments, like Alex Patrick, who says, I've been saving this for a special occasion, but I have to say what I think about the original Tintin.
Oh.
Now, not only does she contribute more to the show than Penelope does, that's not my opinion, it's a plain fact, but even by today's standards, she's a brilliant instance of female representation. 1, her gender isn't her only character trait. 2, she works in a male-dominated field of expertise. And 3, no other character on the show kicks up a fuss about it. Jeff may have been hesitant about letting her go out on a mission at least twice, but that was him being protective of her rather than overt sexism. Fair enough.
Interesting.
Well, Pen Quiller, got in on the debate and says, well, for a girl growing up in the 1960s, both Tintin and Lady Penelope were great role models to show girls that we had more options than becoming mothers or secretaries.
Yes, quite right too. I'm sure Dad would have been really chuffed to hear that. And also, I mean, you look at the next show, look at the Angels. I mean, the top flight fighter pilots for Spectrum, all female.
That's right. I mean, we've touched on this before, haven't we? That people tend to think of 60s TV as something from another time when attitudes were very different. But actually, your dad and his team were gently pushing, well, perhaps sometimes not so gently pushing, against those boundaries and giving us fantastic characters as role model for young girls.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they're really ahead of their time. You can look at it and really squint through a contemporary lens and go, no, I'm not too sure, but. You know, historical context and all that. It was amazing forward-thinking stuff.
Yeah. Andrea Boot says, listening to the podcast on the train for my piercing and tattoo appointment this morning.
Oh, interesting.
Sadly, my clammy ear is too sore to listen on the way home, says Andrea. I have a story about spooky goings-on in our house. This must be inspired by a recent fab fact.
Yes, the weird... ghost story.
Caught us unawares, didn't it?
Yeah, that was most unexpected. I don't know who put that in there.
Well, Andrea says, my late father passed away a few months after your father, Jamie, and he was a big lover of music. In the living room is his stereo system, turntable, CD player and cassette player. If I'm playing one of his old records or CDs, and it's one that I know he loved, the volume dial often seems to increase by itself. And I always thought it was Dad cranking up the tunes with me. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that is nice. Lovely.
I mean, as ever, with these sort of stories, I remember asking my mum, if Father Christmas really existed. And she very cleverly said, well, it's nice to think so. And we can apply the same logic here, can't we?
Absolutely. Well, it's nice to think so. I'm going to adopt that for almost everything.
Ian Stevens posted, I start my new job tomorrow, but my anxiety levels today are off the chart, so I think I may have to visit Tracy Island, followed by Cloud Base, Shadow HQ, and Moonbase Alpha. Didn't think I'd be this anxious, but it's probably not surprising with everything that's been happening. Still a new chapter in life and something to look forward to. Well, I hope that went well, Ian. That was sometime last week. So you've had your first few days in that new job, and I hope it went well. Emma Nichols says Earth has a new moon, and it's here for at least 1,500 years. Something for the Moonbase Alpha team to look at, I think. And she posted a link to a newspaper article which ran thus. Earth has a new moon, or at least a quasi-moon. A new study has revealed. A quasi-moon is a space rock that circles the Earth but is gravitationally bound by the sun. This quasi-moon, called 2023 FW13, was discovered by experts using the Pan-STARRS telescope at the top of the Haleakala Is that right? Must be. Volcano in Hawaii, and is one of the handful of known quasi-moons. Experts think the ancient cosmic companion has been in Earth's vicinity since 100 BC and will keep circling our planet for at least another 1,500 years until AD 3700.
Gosh. Well,
There you
that's
go. I mean,
unexpected.
Gerry Anderson bit of story waiting to be written.
Yes, there's sort of a microscopic quasi-moon base alpha now on there.
That's right. Tabitha Hoop says, the picture of Troy, often used in Stingray box art, looks different from Troy's neutral head in the series. I can't tell if it's just the lighting, but it seems to look off. I read in the trivia section of Troy's Gerry Anderson Encyclopedia page that the head was adjusted during production, so maybe I'm not mad. Possibly it was shot before the show itself. Be great if anyone could explain this for me, please. Thanks in advance. Jamie?
I'm full of no's today. I mean, they made some plasticine-type test heads, and the Troy from that looks a little bit different. But I'm sure they adjusted things. And that eyebrow, Troy's eyebrow. But I mean, we are very, very short of good archive stills from Stingray. We've got loads and loads and loads from Thunderbirds and Space and stuff. But Stingray's a show that we're really, really short of them on. So you do see the same slightly tired stills overused again and again and again. So yes, I don't have the answer though. Sorry.
Sure. And finally then, Matthew Mayhew says, I just watched the first episode of Space Precinct for the first time, and wow, what a first episode. I feel like if it keeps up like that, it'll land in my top 5 Anderson shows.
Wow.
It definitely still holds up today, and an intriguing plot which could be told in a more modern sci-fi. The HD upscaling is brilliant. It shows how good that technology has got recently, and has removed that 90s feel that I feel from the clips on the YouTube channel. Also, hearing Crispin Merrill's music in context has helped increase him as my favourite of the composers. I feel like I could binge the show, but I will pace myself. Here's the rest of the series. If I remember, I'll post my verdict when I have finished.
Wow. Well, that's good, isn't
Matthew.
it? But Matthew, if you're into it that much on episode 1, it does get better and better, doesn't it?
Does.
So
yes, it does. Exactly.
You're going to love it. You're going to absolutely love it.
So that's a good start. Yeah. Well done. So there we are. Do send your emails coming in to podcast@gerryanderson.com, because I'd be lost without you. I mean, what would I do in this part of the podcast?
I mean, you just sit around awkwardly, wait for me to say things that you weren't that keen on, basically.
Yeah, that'd be about it, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that'd never do.
That's the rest of our days. Anyway, I mean, that Space Precinct note is the perfect one to go into our interview. It's almost like you planned that.
Oh, yes. No, I didn't. But yes.
No, come on, you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, then it is pure serendipity. Because this week's... All right, well done. Okay. I'm confused now. Anyway... this one is from the archives, but it's not from the actual archives. It's literally from an archive, because it's a brand new interview from an archive. Do you get it?
Oh, well, I'm confused now.
Okay, well, this interview comes from the team at ITV Content Services, the holders of the ITV archive, which is an amazing place, a real maze of film cans and tapes. It's quite astonishing how much stuff is there. But these are basically the folks who take care of all of that archive material, including tons of Anderson stuff, and are responsible for the upscaling and the HD restoration of Space Precinct, which means we can all enjoy it now. So, It's time to have a chat with two Scotts, Scott Evans and Scott Tempest-Mitchell. I will refer to them in this interview as Scott E and Scott TM for clarity. Here we go. Part 1 of Scott E and Scott TM.
I didn't really.
Hi, I'm Scott Evans. I work on the business development side for ITV in the content services team within the archive in the building here in Leeds, Kirkstall Road, for any of you who know the neighbourhood.
And I'm Scott Tempest-Mitchell. I'm the content processing supervisor here in Leeds.
Nice. Okay, so to avoid any further confusion from this point forward, yes, Podsterons, this is the first time we've ever had two people with the same name. First time we've ever had two people with the same Thunderbirds-y name. Which is extremely unusual. And not only that, but Scott TM, Tempest-Mitchell, also has another Anderson name, Troy Tempest, clearly. So he's very well kind of nominatively determined to be here, apparently. So I'm going to call you Scott E and Scott TM throughout this to help with clarity. So beginning with you, Scott E, what took you to ITV Content Services and business development? What exactly do you do day to day?
Well, to explain the journey to get here, I don't think there's enough time in the podcast. It's a long...
Cut it sideways.
Yeah, I think, let's do the abridged version. So I returned back to my beloved Yorkshire several years ago now from various different parts of the world and different capacities, predominantly working within television and media, a lot in the advertising and the marketing side of things. And this role came up within, Content Services, the archive, which, as I said moments ago, is based here in Leeds. And they needed somebody to, I guess, simplify the servicing that we do and take it out externally. Obviously, the remit of the team here is primarily to I guess, support the ITV archive within the company. But we have the bandwidth, we have the services that we can now take out externally, and they needed somebody to help explain that and probably bring in some external business from other archives and other producers and other people who are sat on really great content that they wanted to preserve and often restore for their own purposes, or whether it be just for commercial purposes as well. So that's roughly how I got about into this part of the business.
Okay, very nice. And Anderson Entertainment and the Space Precinct project then are one of your victims for
victims is a strong word. I'd like to think one of our collaborators.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, indeed. A very good collaborator, I'm sure you'll agree. And Scott, TM, what brings you there and what are you doing day to day?
Well, this is actually my 17th year here in Leeds, at ITV in Leeds. And I started, I was mainly doing admin, just sending out tapes and VHSs and DVDs. It was that long ago. And I've just kind of learned my way through the archiving processes within ITV to where I'm now a content processing supervisor. So we get lots of the ITV archive that we digitize for showing on ITVX and BritBox and things like that. And also that we send to other broadcasters around the world, but we also do external business like your good self and Anderson Entertainment. And we specialize in taking archive content, making it new, making it current, and trying to make it as future-proof as possible, because we know the importance of keeping things like Space Precinct for the previous generations and the new generations. So that is my job. That's my passion. And that's what I've been doing for these past 17 years.
Well, clearly is a passion if you're doing it for that long. In terms of the material that you're working with, Scott TM, what's the kind of variety? What, obviously film material, tape material, but what sort of span of different media are we looking at that you're working with across the 17 years, I guess, and especially now?
Well, we're working with all sorts of different formats, some that are older than any of us on this call here. I've worked on nitrate film from as far back as 1913, I think it was, 1912. Wow. Through to 1-inch reels, U-matic, D2 tapes, the more modern digibeaters and things like that. And then through to DV cams, your little camcorder tapes. And now we're working with digital files, with HD, with UHD. So I've got a pretty good span of the whole sort of broadcasting formats.
Everything and anything, pretty much.
Anything and everything.
And Scotty, I've obviously been to see you, and very very nice people, reasonable coffee. Thank you, Scott TM, for the coffee. And there you have this absolutely massive archive. And when I say absolutely massive, I mean I walked through. I mean, it felt like one of those kind of recursive dream nightmares where you keep going into the next room and it's exactly the same, and then another, and then it keeps going. Just give us some sense of the material, the volume of material that you've got there.
Yeah, I think by the kind of last count, there's somewhere in excess of like 1.2 million assets that are currently within the archive that sits in and around our team in the archive building. And I think it's probably over about 4 floors now. And as you say, much like the image over your shoulder there, it is like a TARDIS. It's a big building. But once you're inside and you really get into it, if you have the time, it is room upon room upon room upon room of all sorts of legacy formats that go back. And we also host random collections in there as well. I think we've got some rank film collection in there as well. So, yes, it's been there for many, many years. The process of digitizing that will be going on. I think the other day I heard the head of archives say, you can correct me on this, Scott, whether or not, is it 30%? Where are we at? Ballpark figure in terms of our own digitization for the ITV archive, do you know?
I think we're actually at 17%. I think his target for the next 5 years is to do another 34%.
Yeah, I thought it was actually. Yeah, so I thought it was less than that. So you can see the scale of the task. Yet, like I say, because of the way the teams work and because of the different, machines that we have and technology to do this, we still can free up time and space to do bespoke projects such as Space Precinct. So yes, a lot of film and tape, and it looks like there's quite a lot yet to do.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you're looking at like another 12, 15 years minimum to get.
Yeah, probably, maybe even more. I'd need to check with Andy Gavigan, who's the head of the archive. He's probably I mean, more.
That is quite some task, and a lot of that material, I'm guessing, a lot of the assets that you have may well be one-offs, the only copy of that thing in the world ever. For you, Scott TM, handling that, is that a lot of pressure when someone says, here is the only surviving copy of this very precious thing, please don't mess it up?
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, somebody once handed me a reel of 16mm film, and it was this sort of not seen for decades interview with the Beatles when they were making A Hard Day's Night. It's something that we've not released or anything yet. It's something we have, and we have digitized it, and we are wanting to sort of release it. However, we've just not found the appropriate time to or anything like that. Yeah. But having that in my hands, knowing how huge the Beatles are, I'm sure you've heard of them, and knowing how many fans would literally kill to have their hands on that and see that was kind of, the hands were shaking a little bit, so thinking, please let this go through without any kind of issue, and thankfully it did. So we've got things like that. There's all sorts of other, because ITV in Leeds, certainly in Leeds, but ITV in general was quite a large focus for music programs. So we've got a lot of things like The Tube and Hitman and Her, but plus lots of other old music shows where there are one-off performances by Mark Ball and things, people of that ilk, that haven't been seen for a long, long time. I think there's Guy Garvey from the Vaults. I think there was an old Kate Bush performance that they recently aired on there, and she recorded it, and then she said, "No, this is not going to be broadcast. I hate this. I don't like the. I think camera work or something like that. There was something that she detested about it, and she just would not let it be broadcast." And it wasn't until very recently that she then gave the go-ahead to Guy to actually broadcast that, and that was sat in our vaults.
Wow. Okay, so there may be some stuff that will be digitized that may never see the light of day, but it's then just preserved in case at some point somebody finds a way to do it, or you get authorization, or somebody signs the appropriate forms. That's, yeah, okay. So there's all sorts, could be all sorts of hidden gems. So on that note then, I'll put Scott E on the spot, and Scott TM, you can think about your answer. Scott E, from your time there, or your knowledge of what's been going on in terms of digitizing stuff and projects that you have been associated with that you can talk about, obviously, because I'm sure some of those will be external. What is the project so far, or the IP so far that you worked on? You can't say Space Precinct, by the way. That is the coolest, in your opinion, and the weirdest, in your opinion? Could be the same one, but just things that might be really surprising, interesting to somebody who's interested in archive TV.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing for me is that my tenure at ITV is relatively short. I've been barely within this team for a year, okay? Yep. And what is actually quite interesting is that I do have answers for you already in that relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different archives, and it is a complete wormhole once you get involved with this industry, because, you can get to a certain age and you can be quite nostalgic about a lot of things. And, and certainly, we're talking about children's television or, youth television, and if we keep it specific to the genre, what we're, when we're looking at, say, Space Precinct, things like that. I know currently, for example, the restoration team have been working extensively in a lot of 70s stop motion animation, things like Ivor the Engine, the Clangers. There's talk of other things such as, the Wombles and maybe the Magic Roundabout down the line. And that's all kind of cool from a nostalgic point of view. Now, one of the archives that I am not at liberty to discuss is something that is incredibly cool. And as a petrol head, I missed out on, but it was already done by the time I came here, but I'm aware of it. And that is a major motorsport archive. And that's about as much as I can tell you. So
cool.
In terms of cool, I can go from already in the short tenure from really cool, retro, nostalgic kids television series, youth television series, through to motorsport and sporting archives that we have. And ITV Sport, which is obviously another division within ITV, has a business model in itself where we have a huge amount of sporting content. But then you go down, without going down another wormhole, licensing rights, which then becomes a knock-on effect of any of these restoration and digitization projects at some point, particularly if it's got a commercial element to it. The weirdest one, and Scott's probably got a deeper depth of knowledge on me on this, but recently we worked with the local medical museum, and they said, we have some tapes we'd like you to digitize. During the meeting, I did say, these tapes that you're going to bring, is there going to be anything in there of sensitive nature? Because obviously we've got teen, relatively young. Is there going to be any kind of like open surgery? And yes, there was. But they were preempted, and it was knee surgery. Quite graphic. They still did the work. I don't think I would have had the strength of stomach to be watching and digitizing open knee surgery. No. So yes, I'm hoping Scott has got something slightly weirder than that. But they're immediately two standouts or three standouts.
There's definitely some controversy there. But yeah, Scott, you've got the challenge, right? Scott TM, because you've got to draw on 17 years of stuff. But maybe, just maybe, you've got some standout stuff in there. So what are your coolest and quirkiest?
Well, I'm going to steer away from the gruesome brute, I think. I was the one that transferred those, so I've still got those fresh in my memory. Before going into that. The coolest thing, one of the coolest things for me is we did some transfers for the National Army Museum. And there was in amongst that, there were some 8mm films that some of the soldiers had filmed, like in Egypt, on their downtime, just splashing around in the sea and that kind of thing. And it was still while the war was going on. So that was absolutely fascinating to me, because in documentaries and things, you only ever see, the war. To actually just see these people taking time to just relax and enjoy themselves and splash around like they were on Blackpool Beach or something like that. That was fascinating. But it just shows you the part of my love for the archive is that you get these little windows in time. These moments that will never be witnessed again. Even if you take a photo on your phone now, that moment will never be witnessed again. That photo is the memory. And a lot of what we transfer, it fits in with that. It's a moment in time. It's a place that no longer exists. It's as close to time travel as I think anyone can ever get.
Yeah, that time travel thing is really key. So that's your cool one.
That's my cool one.
Got a quirky one for us?
Quirky one
that is suitable for a family audience.
That's the thing you say, quirky, and one that pops in mind is not something I'm going to mention for a family audience.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Quirky. Honestly, no, it's not necessarily quirky. Really. It's just the only thing that I can think of at the moment of things that I think are cool, like the National Army Museum.
Yeah, could be cool, unusual rather than quirky. Just something really unexpected, I guess. Like your open knee surgery video.
Well, no, something that was unexpected. Again, it's sort of like family movie things. But we transferred. There was a documentary about Janet Jackson that went out in like the past year. And we transferred like 90% of that archive for this documentary. Now, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan as a kid, and Janet Jackson goes alongside that. If you like Michael Jackson, you're going to like Janet Jackson. So that was a really cool thing. But the quirkiest thing, which might not seem quirky to a lot of people, but it did to me, was we had a roll of film of the Jackson family out bowling, just relaxing, and it's like they're taking over a bowling alley. Somewhere, probably in California or something. And there was all, I think there was Jermaine there and Tito there and Janet there. Michael wasn't there, and lots of their kids and things like that. And it was just such a quirky moment, because these people are almost untouchable. You don't see these family moments; they're so guarded. But I got to see that, which for me was cool and quirky at the same time.
Yeah, it's time traveling, but also making all these people human when you get those little insights, right?
Yeah.
So that's very, very cool. So I have to say, actually, just on a personal, selfish note, going into the archive and having a wander around and being stood next to some cans of Thunderbirds negs. Obviously, for me, there's a moment of, God, Dad was probably within feet of this exact film material, 58 years ago. That's and to be in that proximity again. So it's not just the content of the material, but it's the kind of the journey that physical material has been on. In terms of the Anderson stuff, then in your archive, aside from the Space Precinct stuff, which we will come on to shortly, what other stuff is in there that you know of that you can pull off the top of your head? I mean, I saw some Thunderbirds clearly and some Captain Scarlet. It's quite extensive, the stuff that you've got there.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, we've got a lot of Thunderbirds. Captain Scarlet as well, the original Captain Scarlet. I think we've got some Fireball XL5, is it?
Yeah.
Joe 90. We've got some Digibeta cassettes of. I'm not sure if we've got any actual film of those. And correct me if I'm wrong, did your dad do something called Four Feather Falls? Yes. We have at least one reel of Four Feather Falls, which I have to say very carefully. Four Feather Falls.
Four Feather Falls, yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay. So from 1959, that is. So yeah, it's a nice kind of breadth of material. It's a very, very cool archive. So let's fast forward then to Space Precinct stuff, because this is what's brought us all together, and I'm really pleased with what's happened. So I had a conversation with the team at BritBox and ITVX about Space Precinct and the potential for it. And I don't even remember who suggested the upscale. I'll say maybe could we look into it, perhaps. And then Tyler at ITV put us all in touch, and we got talking. So when you get an inquiry like that, what's the process? I guess we can start with Scott E here. Do you get people coming in saying, "Oh, I've got this really rubbish VHS from 1989 and I want to upscale it," or are you limited in terms of the material that can be upscaled, and why are we upscaling in the first place? Because not everybody's going to be familiar with what upscaling is compared to taking material which can be transferred in HD or higher. So, Scott E, do you want to give us a quick sort of intro to that path?
Yeah, I think it's relatively straightforward. The teams are so well practiced now in terms of the procedure of what we need to do. The first port of call really is, regardless, as you say, it could be somebody like yourself, or somebody with a large collection or a body of work that they want to either digitize or restore, or a combination of the two. It can be literally the man or woman on the street who has a box of old legacy formats tucked away somewhere that they keep meaning to digitize. And unbeknownst to them, often they don't realize that it is just rotting or perishing in situ, and it has a shelf life. So it's a key point to remind people at this sector, this session, this part of the conversation, is that if you are one of those people, you do need to do a little bit of research, because that thing that you keep putting off, you may not be able to do for much longer, because it's one thing having the actual physical tape or film. The other thing is having the machine to play it back on, which is a whole different conversation, right? So, but going back to, the process, it's really straightforward. It's a case of, what do you have? What condition is it in? And we have to audit those assets. Scott and his team at the archive will look at it. And sometimes we can do something with it. Most of the time we can. Sometimes we can't. And depending on what the technology is required in order to breathe life into it, to make it to whatever end product the user or yourself or whoever the client may be wants it to finish at, that will be determined as to what processes we need to do. It could be straightforward digitization. It could be something more bespoke. So initially, it's really just kind of like audit. What have we got? Can we do something with it? Then we can quote against the work. And then it's Scott or the restoration team, or a combination of those two people working together with you as a client or whoever else to go, okay, what are you trying to achieve? What do you want to use this for? Is it just personal use? Does it have a commercial use? Are you looking to release it on a different format? And then we can kind of cut the cloth accordingly. I think that's the best way really to it's not rocket science. It's what do you have and what can we do with it at the end of the day?
Practical, process driven, and tech kind of derived,
absolutely.
really.
We audit it, and then when we're handing over to Scott, my other counterpart here, he'll be able to explain a little bit more in terms of how we then go about the process of getting that from A to B, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Nice.
Now more next week.
Great.
But Scotty and Scott TM, I think it's really interesting to meet the people who do this stuff. They don't often get lauded and talked about or talked to.
Sure, yeah.
But they're responsible for us being able to see this stuff, and it's kind of so nice in a way. Such a strange contrast that in one podcast episode we're talking about the end of network, but also the fantastic continuation of the work done by the guys up in Leeds and other places. So this stuff is still being preserved despite that sad news. So there we go. If you want to find out more, you can go to itvcontentservices.com. Look for them on social media. They're on Instagram and LinkedIn and elsewhere. And they're a very friendly bunch, and they love archive stuff. So if you've got a question, you can email them via the website and say, I'm searching for this. Do you have it? Do you know where I might be able to find that? I've got this old archive film. They work on private projects as well. And you don't have to be a business with a big library to work with them. You could have, some old Super 8 film from 1972 that you want transferred. You can talk to them about it. So really, really nice people. There you go.
Nice. I shall have to send in my my holiday film from Cromer in 1974.
Oh, I would love to see that. There's some screening for a future Fab Live event. Anyway.
Who wants to see me in my woolen swimming trunks? I don't think so. Age 5.
Suddenly feel a bit put off.
Exactly.
Scotty and Scott TM will be back next week, and no Super 8 of Richard in his woolly trunks.
Not yet. Now, you're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Of course you are. You do it every week. Well, if you do listen to us every week, why on earth aren't you subscribing to us? It's quite easy.
Yes.
Just, press the subscribe or follow button or the little bell or whatever to get notifications every week, every time that a new episode appears. And while you're there, why not leave us a nice rating? That's a review and a rating. 5 stars would be glorious. And a few words about why you love listening to the podcast quite so much. And also, copy the link, post it on all your socials. Let your friends know what you listen to and they might join you. You never know. Now,
exactly.
Jamie, have you heard of a social media app called Twitter?
I believe I've heard it mentioned possibly in the news once or twice.
Well,
never used it myself.
Apparently, people talk about the Gerry Anderson podcast on it.
Really?
They do, It's not all they talk about, to be fair.
Okay.
But a few of them hashtag us, Gerry Anderson Podcast. They even tag me, Richard N. James, him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson, and him waiting patiently in the corner, Chris Dalek. For example, Peach, who we know well and hope to see at Leicester. Yeah, says, I've just realised I'm doing some internet shopping while listening to the second part of the fab Anna Leon Brophy's interview with Jamie Anderson on the Gerry Anderson Podcast. I'm also thinking how fun it would be to see a live performance of an audio Thunderbird story.
Oh, yes, that would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Might that ever happen?
I would say never for that sort of thing. It's the kind of thing. It's tricky to get everybody together, particularly because, our lovely Scott and the Hood, Justin T. Lee, is out in Toronto. That definitely makes things a bit trickier. But absolutely never say never.
Do you think that any old script from any Gerry Anderson series might ever be performed live? At any point?
Any old script or any old script?
Any sort of recently discovered script from
that
series.
Sounds like a really good idea. It might happen.
I'll leave it with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Fine. All right.
Perhaps for a special occasion.
All right. Becca says, listening to old but fairly recent episodes of the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 248 has to be the funniest yet, thanks to Jamie Anderson and Richard James's hilarious impressions.
Did we do hilarious impressions?
I don't remember that, but I'm sure we did.
Did we?
I don't
remember doing any impressions.
No, Tone says, listening to this week's Gerry Anderson podcast, I think I prefer that Italian end theme for Space 1999 over the Japanese Thunderbirds Flying High song.
Oh,
I mean, that's fair enough. And I probably agree.
I have been humming it annoyingly. Listen to it twice.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da,
that's it. Off he goes. Crikey.
Now, dear.
Also, Trevor Knight pointed us in the direction of a tweet from Andrew Stocker, who said, very sad news to hear that dear Ray Austin has passed away. His contribution to the world of stunts was paramount to his incredible work on The Avengers and for being a wonderful director on so many other projects. Trevor Knight says, very sad news, as Ray was not only a superb stunt arranger, but a fine actor, writer and director, including 9 episodes of Space 1999, such as Collision Course, Ring Around the Moon and End of Eternity.
Yeah, that's very sad loss, isn't it? I mean, but again, It's the onward march of time and the sad decline in the number of survivors. So, sad stuff.
Yeah. David Lowe says, I've loved UFO for as long as I can remember. I'm a Gerry Anderson fan, but this is one of his best live-action series. Brilliant. I mean, few would disagree with you there, David. And finally, the decline and fall of British sci-fi. Tweeted, the Zero X crash from Thunderbirds I Go is perfectly choreographed, brilliantly paced, and with the stakes set in typically Gerry Anderson's highest possible way. It was an incredible action scene that still grips the 36-year-old me as it did the 6-year-old me. I bet.
It is very cool, to be fair.
There we go. Visit us on Twitter and tweet us and say hello and tell us what you think, and I'll read it out next week.
What? Yes, me. You'll me to send
Not
something
you.
in? Oh, sorry.
No,
right.
I don't want you to tweet. No, you carry on with your work. Get things done.
Okay, all right, I'll go and do that now. Well, to help me do that, shall we hand over to Chris Dale, because then he can take some of the strain of this podcast?
That's a good idea, as he does every week.
He does every single week. He turns up with his randomiser, or somebody does, and presses the button and chooses a random episode of a random Gerry Anderson show and watches it and says some funny and insightful and hilarious and wonderful things.
Yeah, he does.
Let's hope he does all of those and more in this week's Randomiser.
Now remember, Marina, although today's special guest button pusher may seem a little eccentric, he's actually... Well, no, that's pretty much all he is, but even so, we'll just have to make the best of it. Oh, let him in, will you?
Ha-ha! Ahoy there, you swabs!
Yes, welcome aboard, Captain
Goat. Ha-ha-ha!
Yes, well, hello, I'm Chris, and this is Marina.
She has a fine spread of sail, I see.
You what? Oh, you mean the Eagle? Yes, well, she gets us from A to B. Kind of.
We'll soon have her ship-shape in Bristol fashion.
Yes, but before that, I'd rather like for you to press the button on the randomizer today.
If you say so, Jim lad.
Excellent, thank you. And what would you like to see today?
No Captain Goat, he don't see him. He do taste him. A tingle on the end of the tongue.
Okay, well, ask a stupid question.
What's this?
That would be the printout. Let's see. Oh, okay, well, it's Fireball XL5 today.
What's that you say?
Fireball XL5 with Wings of Danger.
That's fighting talk.
Yes, well...
Oh.
Yeah, you're going to be here a while. I'm just going to go and watch it, okay?
I like the cut of your jib, Jim lad. Step lively now.
So, how strange. After last week's episode was an echo of danger from Stingray, that echo still seems to be resonating. We have Wings of Danger now, and not only that, but the last time we visited Fireball XL5, this is where we were. We're opening on Planet 4-6, and it was the first episode of XL5 we saw last time, Planet 4-6. Those wacky subterranes and their naughty plan to destroy the Earth. And here we are, back on their planet. I like that sort of wipe they do with the fire there.
When we will avenge the capture of our leader, the chief subterrane of Planet 4-6. Our robot bird is nearing completion.
Yes, I love this. So it's obviously meant to follow on from the events of the first episode, even though I've got this down as episode 17. I know it wasn't immediately produced afterwards. There was at least a dozen episodes between this and the first episode. But it's obviously, the Subterranes are now plotting revenge for the capture of their leader. What have they gone to? Well, Robot Bird. I just love it. That's their immediate go-to plan. It's brilliant.
The bird with the radium capsules. Very soon now.
I don't know if the Subterrane leader had in case I get captured, here's a list of evil plans. Evil plan number 1, Robot Bird. Evil plan number 2, follow them to a planet that's about to explode and dump some rocks on them.
-0 here.
The Subterrane's plans were a bit odd all the way through the series.
We're receiving some strange radio signals.
It's just very strange that we're back on Planet 4-6 with the Subterranes. Very welcome, though.
Sector.
Can you get a definite fix on their source, Commander?
So we've picked up something naughty. On the old Space City's spacematograph. 90's studying it intently.
How's it coming, Lieutenant? Haven't you got that fix yet?
It's very faint, Commander. I can hardly track it.
Well, let's try it.
And if you keep distracting him, he has to turn away from the screen to answer the question. he could have missed it.
Hey, I think I've got it.
Yeah?
Yes, sir. The signals appear to come from planet 46.
Oh, of course they do.
Subterrane's planet, huh? Hey, we've had some dealings with them before.
Yeah, remember that time they tried to blow up the entire world? You remember that?
5. We've now got a fix for you.
But this will be interesting, looking at this as produced at least a dozen episodes later, to look at some of the things that I mentioned in that first episode. For instance, how long it takes them to get to Planet 4-6 in that first episode.
Venus.
I bet it won't take as long again.
Subterranes.
You can say that again, Professor.
Well, I guess we're going back there sooner than we thought.
Hooray! Let's have a party. I love that. Yeah, Matt saying to Venus, oh, you should remember them. Oh, I sure do, Matt. They're the ones who tried to stick me in a nuclear warhead, aren't they, Matt?
510.
So, everyone seems quite chipper about this this return to the planet of genocidal maniacs who started lobbing missiles at them for no reason. And here we are on the planet. And again, it's that lovely model shot that I mentioned last time. The subterranean operations room mounted in the cliff. As in the foreground of the model shot there, a missile is loaded onto a launch ramp.
10 seconds.
It's a lovely little thing, but it adds so much credibility to this otherwise barren planet, populated by these weird little guys.
2, 1, fire!
And it's strange as well, considering they spend the rest of the series plotting revenge for the capture of their leader. We never actually hear what happened to him. I know he's presumably being held prisoner somewhere on Earth, but they never actually mention it.
On self-guidance system now.
You would have thought, some kind of, I don't know, capture somebody and exchange hostages might have been a good first plan. But no, they've gone straight to Robot Bird.
Robot Bird has sought out plant target.
Oh. Yes.
It will fire its deadly radium capsule by self-guidance.
This all seems a bit unnecessarily elaborate, but I'm not one to question the subterraneans, otherwise they will nuke me. What's this? Yes, our Robot Bird has settled into a hovering position over a plant. Oh, fired a naughty capsule, and immediately the plant starts to smoulder.
A perfect strike.
Wither.
The plant will soon wither.
Oh, yeah. I called it. Yes, there it goes. Well, it's clearly a very fast-acting radioactive poison capsule thingy.
The radium capsule will take longer to work on Zodiac, but it...
Of course, yes. Steve is more complex than a plant. And also a lot tougher. So, Robot Bird plan seems to be a resounding success for the 3 subterraneans in their little control room. I like that music actually there as well. That's some really good atmospheric electronic stuff. And here's XL5.
This ship is approaching our planet. It is a world space patrol vessel.
Ooh.
They must have picked up some radio waves from our apparatus.
They've come right to our doorstep.
Activity.
I suppose there's no reason that Planet 4-6 wouldn't be under constant surveillance anyway. World Space Patrol seem to be a bit negligent here and just sort of saying, oh, planet full of people who want to blow us up? Well, let's not keep our eye on that. Oh, but that's the shot. That's the shot I mentioned last time. There was a particular shot of Fireball Jr. detaching from the main body of XL5 and heading down to the planet that I love. That's it. So it's a kind of a mix of reuse artwork of Planet 4-6 from the first episode and some more recent stuff.
These are cool customers. They're somewhere around.
Yeah, could be.
If only we knew where their base was. If only I'd visited their base, I could have...
There!
Maybe... Oh, that's another callback. Oh, this is fun. It's the rock that looks like a dragon gargoyle thing. Holding on it for a long time.
This planet is just full of those weird rock formations.
Oh,
I know that from having seen one of them once.
Jumpy.
Not exactly inviting, is it?
Well, I don't know. They're probably very happy to see you. It means they don't have to send their bird all the way to Earth.
Activity and the radio's been static.
Roger, Steve. Standing by to connect up Fireball Jr.
Oh. Yeah, calling it a day. Probably best to call it a day, They searched for a whole 5 minutes, apparently not in the location where they were last time. I mean, maybe the Subterranes moved on, maybe they relocated their base, but the implication seems to be they're in exactly the same location as before. Why can't the XL5 crew find it?
They have gone, and we had them at our mercy. If only the robot bird had been ready.
If only they had an attention span of more than 90 seconds, they might still be here.
Rules have to be made. Do not fear. Our chief will be avenged.
Yes. Yes, interesting they don't want the chief back, necessarily. They just want to avenge his capture.
On Planet 4-6, negative, Commanders.
I guess he's been shipped off to Conver or something. But yeah, a prisoner exchange story regarding the Subterrane leader, that might have been a bit more logical.
Continue routine procedure.
Yeah, everything's fine. Because we captured one Subterrane that one time, the rest of them probably aren't going to do anything. Oh, here it comes. Rocket missile number 2, with a robot bird attached.
All is ready. 5 seconds to go.
Oh, and now we know it's serious. It's the Subterrane countdown music is back.
2, 1, 0. Fire!
Oh no, this is Granitoid tank music, isn't it? Well, it's just as good. But it's interesting as well. I wonder if the Subterranes were always intended to be a returning villain, because they came back to them quite late.
Success.
And yet they had the control room set. It looks like the same set.
Robot bird on self-guidance system.
And obviously this is all the same puppets in the same costumes, so...
Consequences.
Yeah, they must have had some idea to retain the Subterranes.
Systems will be useless.
Oh, that's quite poignant.
Our winged messenger...
The Subterrane leader's high chair is still in the middle of the room, and none of the Subterranes are willing to sit on it. Obviously that's his chair. And quite right too. They're very respectful of their chief.
Retro's fired. Approaching landing pad.
Oh, this is a fun shot. XL5 returning to Earth, but it's a sort of first-person view from Steve and Robert's perspective. As XL5 touches down.
Touchdown, A-OK, Steve.
So Fireball XL5's patrol is over, eh, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir.
Well, that lasted all of 5 minutes, didn't it?
Radio beams from Planet 4-6?
No, Lieutenant. Not a bleep.
I guess that 90-second visit, that must have, convinced them to change their minds about being naughty. Nope, the robot bird has followed XL5 all the way to Earth. I'm not sure what powers the thing. It must, Oh dear, there's Zuni.
Zuni didn't really cause you a lot of trouble, did he, Commander?
Of course he did.
I was expecting Zero to say, oh no, Venus, it's fine. And then I was going to say, actually, he nuked like 17 buildings, but...
It's great to have him around to liven up the place.
Oh no. Don't be nice about him. Don't be nice about Zuni.
Zuni would like that.
What was that?
Well, I asked you, Venus, but I guess he can come along.
Oh, where are you going? To get shot at by a robot bird, I guess. Well, now the robot bird has entered the Earth's atmosphere. I'm wondering if this cloud footage is reused from Supercar. I guess it might be.
Back on Earth again, Steve.
Yeah, it sure is, Venus.
Not to have any revengeful aliens looking to poison anybody with a robot bird. Say, Venus, what's that in the sky flapping its wings? Oh, it's getting very close to them, and they've not noticed. And it's quite a large model compared to the little hover car. But this is fun. Steve's been hit. He's knocked out. The car is out of control. A lot of back projection stuff as the car hurtles all over the place. Venus has the sense to flip the switch marked emergency brake.
I must have passed out.
Move over, Steve. I'll drive you back to Space City.
Oh, God.
Thorough check over in the hospital bay there.
17 car crashes later. I do like that veil that Venus is wearing, though. And the robot bird moves off to do robot bird things somewhere else, I guess.
The robot bird has struck. Excellent. But we must make sure the bird stays until we are certain that Zodiac is dead. If the Earthman recovers, our little machine must strike again. There is no escape for Zodiac.
Shame you couldn't have smuggled one of those planetomic warheads, even a miniature one, into that robot bird. Do a whole suicide run against the Space City Tower or something. But no, it's just revenge against Steve. That was odd.
Strange element in his body.
So obviously we're now in the hospital. Venus, being the doctor and all-round medical expert that she is taking care of things. But there was a hospital porter or orderly pushing a trolley along, and the way he was walking was very strange, even for a Supermarionation puppet. That looked a bit weird. Oh, but poor Steve. He's now on life support. And this is all a bit reminiscent, actually, of a later Stingray episode, The Master Plan, which I think we've already covered on the Randomiser, of, where Troy is poisoned by his archenemy, Titan. Oh, that's quite a sinister shot. We're getting a shot from Steve's perspective on the hospital bed, looking up at Venus, looking down at him with those surgical lights from above. But this is a nice montage as well. We got Matt pacing around the place. Here comes Venus. What's the good word, Venus?
Well, Professor,
I broke him.
over. The operation was a complete success.
I mean failure.
Well, Venus, I knew you could do it.
But now,
It's a surprise to me, Matt.
if he's to recover.
She's retrieved the radioactive capsule that the robot bird fired into him. Meanwhile, the robot bird is hovering over Space City. Nobody seems to have detected it. But again, as we saw earlier,
Can't understand how Steve was shot. Well, we've checked.
90 keeps looking at the screen and getting distracted by certain grumpy people who call him away.
Reward. He should be fine in a couple of weeks.
So Steve's got his fairly large room in the hospital. Bowl of fruit, well out of reach. He can't get that if he fancies any of it.
Steve Zodiac is recovering from our first strike.
Ooh.
It is bad. But
Oh, that's a really interesting line read there from John Bluthal. Oh, it is bad.
is May. Ah, yes. And with the robot bird's TV scanners relaying information to us, we will be able to see our chief avenged.
Hooray! I'm sure he'll appreciate that. I'm sure he'll appreciate that you're working to avenge him rather than rescue him.
Thanks, Venus. They're swell. When are you going to let me get up? I've been here for a week now. Yet I feel just...
Well, Steve,
They feel fit, Steve.
You know when you came in here and you had legs? Yeah, that didn't last. I had a whoopsie with the scalpel.
I keep seeing a bird hovering outside my window.
Bird, Steve. I'll take a look.
Yeah, go and stick your head out the window. I was just thinking there, having commented on that line of John Bluthal's.
What was it like?
Well, I can't really
How underrated he is as a Supermarionation performer. And what a shame it was that he only did the one series.
It'll be nightfall soon.
I think he's really good in this.
The curtain, Steve.
Obviously, his regular characters in Zero and Jock are great fun, but a lot of the aliens are really interesting and fun voices. Ah, the robot bird appeared at the curtains just as Venus was closing them.
Steve, I'll see you in the morning.
Ah, so she's checking out for the day.
Good night, Venus.
Nobody else in the Space City Tower is noticing the giant hovering robotic bird. It's great. But Steve's tossing and turning here. He's a bit restless.
Oh, it's no good. I can't sleep.
Keep thinking of robot birds.
I guess I'll take a breath of air.
Over to the window. And the bird has... Presumably, since the tower is rotating, it needs to rotate with the tower.
The same bird. I knew I hadn't imagined it.
It's pointing its very sharp nose towards me.
What are you doing out of bed?
Oh no. It fires.
Now come along, Steve. Please. Back to...
Hits the vase of plants, flowers, near the window.
The doctor. But I sure don't feel tired.
Never mind, Steve. The rest will do you good.
And immediately they start to decompose. So Venus has saved Steve again. Twice in one episode. This is unprecedented.
What a girl. I should know better than to argue.
Wonder why she came in here. Oh, flowers are dead. Oh, I was expecting there that Steve and Venus would see the flowers dying before their eyes, but no, they didn't notice.
When will Steve be up and about, Venus? He's been in bed 2 weeks now.
I know.
Lucky guy.
I was just going in to tell him he can get up today.
What? He seemed capable of walking within like a day. What'd you keep him in for 2 weeks for?
Impossible. The worst patient I've ever had.
I came here to tell you that you can get out of bed, and you're out of bed.
Hey, Steve, take a look at this. It's some kind of metal bird.
It's been hovering there for 2 weeks. I just noticed it.
Hey, that must be the bird I was telling you about.
It looks like some sort of robot.
But what?
Yes, it doesn't look like an actual bird as such. It is just very basic metallic. Almost with the sort of Thunderbird 1E type nose cone and just these little hovering wings. Well, it's missed again. Oh, we've got the fast pace.
I think I've got this figured. If
music on now.
Capsule, Venus. My guess is you'll find it contains the stuff that knocked me out.
Where are you going, Steve?
I'm going to get a stun gun. I want to take a closer look at that bird.
Why has nobody in Space City spotted this thing? How many people are there?
Now to knock that metal bird out of the sky before it can cause any more damage.
Meanwhile, I'll take this capsule to my laboratory.
I wonder if it's only programmed to shoot at Steve. Well, we'll never know, because Steve scored a direct hit.
Got it. Now we'll see what this is all about, Matt.
Down it goes.
Has gone wrong. The signals from the robot bird have ceased. The bird is out of operation.
Oh, and the robot bird plan was foolproof.
Must be ready with our defense missiles. It will not be long before the Earthmen discover where the robot bird has come from.
Ooh, well, they're lining up an array of 4 missiles to take on Earth with. Which again begs the question, what have they been doing since episode 1? Have they just sort of been sitting there twiddling their thumbs? They don't seem bothered about retrieving their leader, so presumably they wouldn't be bothered about nuking the planet if he's still on Earth.
How's it coming, Matt? Have you found out what made that thing tick?
I shall know pretty soon, Steve. It's a masterpiece of engineering.
Oh, that's a familiar sound effect.
Same type we were getting from Planet 46, Commander.
The first sound effect that springs to mind with that is the homing device from Captain Scarlet Model Spy.
The method they adopted.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to figure some way to keep them in check once and for all.
You are right, Steve.
I suggest nuking their planet, Steve. I didn't get a chance to do it last time.
And if it got a hold.
Right. Get that metal bird working on our frequencies, Matt. And we're going to pay a return visit to Planet 46 and beat them at their own game.
Okay, Steve.
So back on Planet 46, those 4 missiles are still ready for launch against XL5.
World Space Patrol ship is approaching fast.
I do love it with these old shows, actually, where it's... The World Space Patrol would never send an entire fleet of XL ships. It's just going to be the one.
Missiles.
And the Subterranes aren't going to launch that many missiles, just 4. It's so sweet, and yet it's totally against how actual, I suppose, space warfare would operate, presumably.
Roger, Matt. Stand by to fire, robot bird, Robert.
Stand by to fire, robot bird.
Nah, just kidding, Robert. I wanted to see if I could make you say that.
Subterranes have defense missiles ready for launching.
And I'd be a toot if I couldn't guess who they were aiming at.
Okay.
Well, you're the only ones around, so yeah, probably they're going to be aimed at you guys. But you've got your robot bird with its own cool theme music.
Fireball XL5 to Planet 46. Your metal robot bird is on our frequency and is in orbit around your planet.
Uh-oh. There's some lovely side-eye glances between the Subterranes there, so... Oh, what have we done?
Missiles. If you do not comply with the laws of the universe, we'll send the robot bird down to attack you.
Oh, yeah, the laws of the universe. Gotta comply with them.
Shall we do?
Even the most fiendish villains wouldn't dream of crossing the laws of the universe.
Has beaten us again.
Oh.
We have no choice. Lower all defense missiles.
Oh, it's so sad. And it was such a foolproof plan. That's what gets me. Oh dear. So, I think they leave the robot bird in orbit to make sure the Subterranes don't do anything naughty after they've gone. Which, you know, considering the Subterranes have a plethora of missiles to shoot the thing down with.
The subtrains will do a little bird watching from now on.
Yeah, sure glad the robot we invented is a little more friendly. Hey, Robert?
On our way home.
Yeah, again, he's not...
Way home.
Yes, he's a bit more friendly, except for all those times that he punches you in the face when you confuse him. So, there we go. The robot bird has been left in orbit to keep an eye on the subtrains. We know from having done later episode Dangerous Cargo how well that went. But there we go. That was Wings of Danger. That was an episode that I haven't seen for a while. So I thoroughly enjoyed seeing that one come up today, even if it is it's a very odd revenge plan. But I suppose it's not inconsistent with, for instance, in Plant of Doom, second episode of Stingray. What's Titan's big plan to get revenge? Plant. Plant is not that much removed from Robot Bird, is it? But no, it's very very strange that this came up so soon after Planet 4-6, immediately in fact. But a nice return to the subterranean homeworld. I'm not entirely sure why the XO5 crew couldn't find them, considering they spent a lot of time in that base. But yeah, just nice touches all the way through. Little reminders of that first episode from the base, the subterraneans themselves, even the flame pit and the gargoyles. It's all lovely to revisit the subterraneans and their wacky, goofy plans. Wonder what they're going to come up with next week. First, they've got to take down the robot bird. Very tricky.
Dum 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 dum.
What is it? You're in fine voice this week, Jamie.
I'm not in fine voice. I'm in voice. I don't know. I'm just feeling very musical. I've had a real week. Sorry. Thank you, Chris. 5XO5. Yes, lovely.
Yes. Yeah. Great.
But no, I've had a real week of getting things stuck in my head. Real earworms. Yeah.
Have you? Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Really. I mean, I don't know if you've heard it, and I know this is very off topic, but I'm going off topic just for a moment.
Go on.
I would love him or hate him, and I know many hate him, but I think it's undeserved hate. There's a fantastic James Blunt song.
Oh, yes.
Called Monsters. Do you know it?
No, I don't know that, no.
Oh, goodness me. Well, don't listen to it if you're feeling at all fragile. I think he wrote it when his dad was very ill and he thought he was going to die. And it's this sort of final message to a father. And I hear it everywhere currently, and it's very emotive and really beautiful and really lovely.
Yeah. Oh.
So that is that. Then between that and a bit of Fireball, because I sang that when I went to Talking Pictures the other week.
Yeah. And D'Artagnan and the Musca Hounds.
Well, do you know what? We watched an episode of that on YouTube last night. Weirdly, yeah. See, all this musical stuff is just getting into my brain, and I can't get rid of it.
Yeah. There you go. Well, Musca Hounds are always ready.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Anyway, we actually had I'm still going on completely off topic. We sat and watched the top 25 kids TV intros from the 1980s.
Oh wow!
And D'Artagnan was in there.
Of course it was.
It was lovely. Anyway, sorry. Shall we get back onto Anderson stuff?
Oh yes. Well, yeah. I think we should. Although, I mean, that's it, really, isn't it?
Oh, I suppose it is. Yes.
Having said that.
So sorry, Podsterons, I've just wasted the last 3 minutes of your time by talking non-Anderson stuff. But we'll be back next week to talk more Anderson stuff. And if you've got thoughts on Anderson stuff or anything else, really, you can email us podcast@gerryanderson.com. And I know, you know how you mentioned earlier on subscribing or following the podcast?
Yes.
Well, I spoke to a podcast expert, someone really in the know, because obviously that's not us. And he said that following or subscribing is the number one thing that listeners can do to help a podcast go up the charts and help others hear it. So
there you go.
That's the number one thing. The number two thing is to revate.
Oh, really?
But if you've only got the energy in you for one thumb press,
yeah, which many of us do.
I'm feeling that way right now. Then a follow or a subscribe would be amazing. So thank you. Thank you in advance for doing that, Podsterons, because you can do it right now. Just look at the top there. There's a little plus or a follow icon.
Just
press that there.
Move your thumb.
Yeah.
Go on. That's it.
Oh, well
there you go.
done.
Easy,
done.
wasn't it?
That was fine.
That's great. You can rest now for the rest of the week.
And now look at the podcast shooting up the charts, all thanks to you and your lazy thumb. Anyway, lazy thumbs, clammy ears. Let's move on. I know. We'll be back next week for pod 261.
Oh.
But until then.
Must we?
Yes.
Okay, then.
We've got to go. Come on. Goodbye.
All right. See you then.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
spectrum is green.
Must we?
261, though.
I know, it'll be 300 before you know it. It's bonkers, isn't it?
What's that going to feel like? Oof.
Well, I think it'll be exciting because we've got some new stuff coming up, haven't we? Some new things we're going to do. We can't talk about it yet, but we can soon. But it'll be fun, won't it?
It will be fun, yes.
Guaranteed.
Yes. And slightly scary.
Oh, gosh, yes, I'm terrified.
Yeah, me too.
And it's going to be more effort, more fun.
Yeah.
More energy in, more energy out, maybe.
Right. Yeah, great. Yes.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
And a bar just outside. Anyway.
Oh.
I know, that's the best bit, isn't it?
Now you're talking.
All will be revealed, Podsterons, in the coming weeks. We might be able to talk about it at the live podcast, possibly. Do you think?
Possibly, yeah. A couple of weeks away, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, I'm really hungry. My tummy's rumbling.
Oh, go on then. Go and make yourself some cheese on toast.
I'm trying not to gurgle. So, yes. All right, I'll go and do that. And
all right.
Maybe see you at the secret place very soon.
Yeah. Don't forget the caramelised onion chutney. And slices of tomato as well. And a little bit of basil. And just a little crack of black pepper.
Okay, I'm gonna make it now. Bye, I've got to go. Bye.
Nice. Bye. Could I have some?
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.